It's not going to help. Teaching is not for everyone.
Love can make you, well, I don't know, so you don't think straight.
I should introduce myself. Ellie.
I'm Nancy Miller.
You might have read about me.
Oh, my name's Dan, by the way.
And I mean, I can explain it. Absolutely. But it'll only make things worse.
Those kids were horrible. I still can't say a single nice thing, and their parents were just...
I never could put it into words.
Some people should not be allowed to have children.
He was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
There was one little boy who would kick me as hard as he could. I mean, every chance he got.
I couldn't believe it when he asked me out. It was like...
ridiculously painful. I mean, every day, every chance he got, kicking me. And he was one of the better kids. That gives you any idea of how bad they really were.
But really, I think if you could have seen that fire, I mean, it may not be your thing, but it was seriously impressive. Seriously, just an amazing fire. Big and hot, waves of heat. So you couldn't look right at it. You had to look away.
You see, he was the love of my life.
3 strangers.
3 stories.
3 murders.
We're all very familiar with the rule of 3s.
But what we often overlook is how the 3 instances are related.
In
our stories of fear,
rage,
and heartbreak,
what seems to be 3 completely unrelated tales
turns out to be a simple incident of cause and effect.
Bright
Apple Crush
by Steve Yoki. I didn't look away though.
It's hard when you decide you're really going to try and help people. Become a teacher. Take a job where you can make a difference. Where you think you can make a difference. It's even harder when that turns out to be impossible.
After months of dating, and I mean the best kind of dating, well, you know, the sweet, hot, can't be without him kind of dating, we decided to move in together.
So like I said, I can explain it. He was cheating on me. That afternoon there was some kind of accident at the local school and they sent everyone home.
That's frustrating.
I usually work most of the night, so I came home early.
Big decision to live together, but it felt right.
She was there, in my bed, with my husband. Just crazy sex. I walked in, but they didn't even see me. I stood there a while, but they still didn't see me because they were so into... And then I turned around and walked out.
I mean, it wasn't perfect dating. I don't want to sound... Well, you know, it was all right. We had a couple fights, and some of them had gotten a little physical, but it was nothing.
Especially when you can help a kid, and they don't want it. You're trying to teach a kid and they act like they're smarter than you.
So anyway, I asked him to move in and he said yes.
A bunch of 10-year-olds.
I didn't even know the girl. I thought maybe I would have known her.
Like, they know anything. Except how to be mean. You know, no one warned you about that. In college, in your classes, even when you were a student teaching. No one ever tells you. Kids can be horrible.
The second night after he moved in, I spilled a bottle of wine. It was just careless.
There was a rope in the closet at the end of the hall. I could still hear them.
But he struck me so hard that I blacked out. Just a sharp pain to the jaw and then nothing. You know, when I woke up, I wasn't even sure. And then I cleaned up the wine.
I remember so vividly the moment when I just snapped.
That started to happen a lot, actually. Not the spilling.
I was at my desk.
But the hitting.
And I was trying to explain photosynthesis. Well, the way to explain photosynthesis to a bunch of 10-year-olds. The plants have their leaves and the sunlight shines down.
There was this
bright
bright light
light
that shone in through the curtains. Do you see my apartment faced these security lights, and well, it never really got dark. He hadn't noticed until he moved in. This became another source of tension. Something that was my fault.
And as I'm trying to teach these kids something, I was at the board writing with my back to them, like this. But then, I got hit with something. And I mean hit hard in my shoulder, and again in my leg, and again in my hip.
But then it got so the bruises were becoming something I had to explain. I felt like a bad after-school special. But I guess most of the stuff could have actually been avoided had I just paid more attention.
It took me a minute to even realize what was happening. These kids were throwing rocks at me. These kids in my class. These young kids were actually throwing rocks at me. And laughing.
They were laughing and grunting, and all of a sudden, it felt like I was in a tunnel with traffic. This roaring white noise that kind of pushed everything else into the background. And then I realized I was gripping the rope so tight that my hands were raw.
And that was okay for a while. I mean, well, you see, he was the first person I ever loved. He was everything to me, and well, you take the good with the bad. That's how it works. Right.
I couldn't even speak.
They were still having sex when I hit the girl in the back of the head. I don't really remember what I hit her with, but it was heavy. He screamed out, and after I hit him a couple of times, he stopped moving.
Eventually, it just got to the point where I didn't even try to avoid it. I stopped flinching completely, and, well, he seemed to understand. I just accepted it.
They were hitting me.
While he was hitting me.
Eventually, I stopped hitting them and tied them to the bed.
I had to take the rest of the day off. I went home.
And then last night, something was different.
And I walked downstairs.
And I didn't feel anything at all when he was hitting
And
me.
then I walked outside.
And I didn't fall down.
And I walked to the
And I
garage.
was aware on some level that my body was moving, right? But it was like watching a movie standing right up against the screen. So none of the images made sense at all.
While I was at home, I had some time to think. To think about what really happened that day and to everything that had happened to me in my 3 months at that school. And I made some decisions about those 10-year-olds. If you can't teach them to even be human, what good are they?
It's all kind of a blur still.
The garage is where we kept the gasoline.
But then it was clear. I mean, it was really simple.
was really
It all
simple.
seemed so simple. I looked down and somehow he was on the ground and he was screaming and there was blood everywhere and I kept bringing my boot down on his neck and face and I remember thinking this shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be doing this, but not having any control over it. There was a point where I didn't even recognize him anymore. And my boots were covered in blood.
It's the healthiest snack in the world.
I always carry matches.
All of a sudden, I could hear my breathing and my heart pounding in my chest. There were tears on my face, but I didn't stop.
Just like this. And whoosh!
So I passed them out and I said, okay, kids, now it's important that you all stay healthy, but I know not all of you love to eat apples. So here's a little deal for you guys. Whoever finishes their apple first gets an extra 20 minutes at recess.
It all happened so
It all
quickly.
happened so quickly.
It all happened so quickly. They just started tearing into the apples and I'll confess
It was exciting and horrifying all at once. It was a rush.
Rush of flame up the side of the building, faster than I would have imagined.
I mean, I didn't expect them to act with such enthusiasm for just an extra 20 minutes at recess. I thought it would somehow be harder.
I finally stopped.
Might have used too much poison.
I'm sure they woke up at some point.
If I would have known they'd been so ferocious, I probably would have eased off a bit. I like to think I would have been more restrained.
I like to think they woke up right in the middle of it.
You never think of yourself.
But that might be too generous, really.
Well, when it was over, I guess, I really didn't know what to do. I took off my boots because I didn't want to be in them. And I set them in the tub, and I let that fill up.
It took
while I
about
went over to
10
the washing
minutes
machine
before the
and
first
threw
one
in my
started
clothes.
convulsing,
I went
and it
back
happened
to the
quickly after
bathtub and
that.
started scrubbing the boots.
I wouldn't let any of them go to the bathroom, and I wouldn't let any of them
That water
leave.
was red and soapy,
I told them to stay in their seats.
but the boots were clean.
And for the first time,
I set the boots out to dry.
I don't know if they were
drained
afraid
the
or
tub.
disoriented or
I
just
watched that
I
stunned,
started
but
scrubbing that. And
they did as they
that
were
took
told.
when that
close
was
to
clean,
it.
I
went
sat
back to
behind
the
my
washing
desk
machine.
and I watched
Moved my
as
clothes
these
to the washer to
horrible
dry.
children
Then I went back
collapsed
outside
onto their
to the
desks in
bathroom.
pools of
Back of
spit
the
and
bed.
crimson
He was
streak,
still trying
and they
to
would
scream.
cry and
There
ask me
really
There
questions
was a
and
point where he
confused.
reached towards me.
Completely
I started to
confused.
sob and
And I
he pulled
couldn't.
me.
It's hard for me.
didn't
I
know
couldn't
what
make
to do.
myself
I
feel.
ran
It was
back to the
really
washing
like
stood there and
threw back
watched
on
me
my
fight.
clothes.
Yes, I started
Just
stopping.
everything.
No,
My
who left, mildly conscious before I began to realize this might cause a problem. I knew they wouldn't understand, so the general reaction didn't surprise me. I guess I thought some of the other teachers would, but no. No one did.
I feel like I could hear those sirens for hours before anyone actually got there. I didn't know what to do. I guess I just sat on the couch far away from him.
But you know, I do think secretly some of the teachers were proud of me.
It took forever, but, you know, when they got there, they told me there was a huge fire a few blocks down, and that's why they were so late. They said they were sorry.
When the police spoke to me, they assumed I was the woman in bed with my husband.
I told them I came home from drinks with friends and found him like that.
So they were surprised.
You know, I can't even read newspapers or watch television anymore because of the ridiculous things people are saying about me.
I rode with him in that ambulance and held his hand.
There's
Waited.
going to be an investigation. I suppose that makes sense.
Saying, I hate children. It's amazing what people will believe.
I don't know what I'm going to do when he wakes up, though, when he can tell people what I did.
I didn't really try to cover anything up. I wasn't thinking that way, I guess. I wasn't thinking at all.
Listen! I took that job because I love kids. I love working with kids.
But I still think they deserved it. I can feel it in my bones.
But don't you see? Those weren't kids, though. They were something else.
I sit alone now and wait.
I've been told as part of this whole court thing that I'll be going to a hospital where someone will be taking care of me for a change.
I'm sitting by his hospital bed, and I can't help but think, what is he going to say to me when he wakes up? Is he going to remember anything at all? I barely do.
That doesn't make it better.
That'll be nice. Healthier. I don't know.
But the doctors, when they came out, they told me, due to the extent of his injuries, they don't think he's going to wake up.
I wish I could explain that fire to you. It was...
But it doesn't matter anyway, right? No harm done.
But the thing I remember the most.
Pride. Apple?
Crush.